Psalm 111 verses 7 and 8 say this: "The works of his hands are truth and justice. All his instructions are trustworthy. They are established forever and ever, enacted in truth and in what is right." It starts out here saying that all that God does, all the works of his hands, everything that he touches, everything that he does, and he is a part of, are truth and justice. You know, with God, it can be no other way, because God's very essence, his very being, is truth, and it is justice. There's no way possible for the God that we serve, for the God of creation, for our Father, to lie, to do anything that is not true. He cannot do anything that's not just. It's part of who he is. It's part of his character. And you know, his call for us is to live by his truth and to live by his justice also, because his justice is so important, not for the punishment aspect of it, because his justice sometimes does involve punishment or discipline, but his justice is so important for teaching and for growth. You see, that's one of the truths about God's justice, is that it's not about the punishment, it's not about the discipline, it's not to get revenge, it's to teach. It's to teach us to follow him. It's to teach us to be righteous. It's to teach us to walk with him. So justice is so important. You know, we focus so much on love that we miss the justice, because we don't like to think about the justice, because automatically we think of punishment and discipline, which always brings us pain of some sort, physical, emotional, or whatever. So this is who God is, truth. You know, the laws of nature are his truth. You know, any truth that is true comes from God, is initiated from him. The world today says, you know, what's true for me is different than what's true for you. No, it's not. It may be different circumstances, and we may apply the truth a little bit different, but the truth is exactly the same. My truth and your truth cannot be different. If they are, it's not real truth. It's just something, it's our opinion or our desire or what feels good to us. It's not real truth. So God is truth and he's justice. And all his instructions are trustworthy. You know, so if he's true and if he's just, and that is absolutely who he is, every single one of his instructions is going to be trustworthy. We can read from the beginning of the Old Testament, Genesis, to the end of Revelation in the New Testament, and every instruction, every command is true. Every command is trustworthy, because God can't do anything wrong. He can't tell us the wrong thing. He can't lead us in the wrong path. You know, Satan tries to twist God's words to mean something to lead us in the wrong path, but that's not God. You know, if there's any deception that goes on, it's coming from Satan and not from God. It has to do with our misunderstanding of who God is, or our spiritual immaturity and not really understanding the Bible and things like that. But his commands and his instructions are absolutely true. That's why it's so important to read the Bible and to get a greater understanding, to make your relationship with God a priority, because these things are so important. In verse 8 it goes on to say, they are established, talking about his instructions, forever and ever, enacted in truth and in what is right. You see, his commands and his instructions, his truth never changes. If it was true, if that instruction came 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, it's just as true today. It doesn't matter. You know, the culture doesn't matter. The language doesn't matter. The race of people doesn't matter. Nothing makes a difference. Nothing will change God's truth. And looking forward, the reason that we can be so bold in teaching God's truth and teaching his instructions is first that they're the same as they were thousands of years ago, and they will be the same tomorrow. They will be the same for our grandkids. They will be the same for our great grandkids. They will be the same for 1,000 generations going forward. That's why we can be bold in teaching God's instructions. That's why we can be bold in teaching God's truth. That's why we can teach what the Bible says. And we should be telling others about it because it is ultimate truth. It's a saving truth. It's a truth that can be used in our daily lives for our living. This is such an important thing. We must never, ever forget it or take it for granted. So I would encourage anyone listening today do you really truly believe that there's only one truth? And that truth is based and rooted in God himself? That God is truth. God doesn't just exhibit truth, God is truth. Search your heart. Come to the point where you really believe that. And then have a great desire to know God's truth. Because once you know it, you don't have to worry about it changing. You don't have to worry about the rules changing. Other things in life, the rules may be one thing today, then be something else tomorrow, but not in God's economy, not as a child of God. What God says stays. It doesn't change. That's why we can look at the Old Testament. We can look at the prophets. We can look at, the Old Testament saints, and we can glean something from them because the same truth still goes. Do you truly believe that? Do you believe that it's so important to teach this truth to the next generation, and to other people? We need to search our hearts. Do we really truly believe that God is truth and justice? How is that changing our lives? How does that change your reactions to people? And I would just encourage you to think about these things today. Ask God to show you what you're supposed to do with these two verses and with the message you heard today. And I just pray that God will really bless you. He will anoint you with his love and his care, that he will use you to exalt his kingdom and to help others to see their need for Jesus. Please like, share, and subscribe, and may God always bless you.